So thank you everyone so much for joining. My name is Izzy and I am from the Customer Success team here at Vevox. I'm really happy to announce that we are joined today by Rick Roberts, who is from Grace College in the USA. So before I hand over to Rick, I just wanted to ask everyone a quick question via Vevox, just to see where everyone is attending from today. So I'm just going to open up the Vevox dashboard and open up my poll. So where are you attending from today? So this is our pin on image style question. So all you need to do is click on the map where you are attending from today. You can zoom in on the map as well. I know that some of the countries are appearing quite small, but feel free to, you can zoom in. But all you need to do is just click on the map where you are and click send, and that will send in where you're attending from. Lovely, I can see that we've got quite a few responses there, so I'm just going to close my poll and we can see where everyone's attending from. So we've got quite a lot of people in the UK, but we've got some people in the US, which is great, some people in Africa. So it's really great to see. So Rick is in America himself, so it's great to see that we have people attending there as well. So just to introduce our guest speaker for today, so we are joined by Rick Roberts, who is from Grace College in Indiana, USA. Rick has taught at Grace College for over 10 years with focus on life sciences, both lower and upper level. So I won't speak anymore. I will hand over to Rick himself. I'm just going to make you a presenter, Rick, so you're able to share your screen, and over to you.
All right, welcome. Glad that you're able to be here on the webinar. There we go. What I'm going to do is kind of run through a little bit of what I would do in a classroom and give you some background as well. When students come into the classroom, to just kind of relax them a little bit, I usually have some sort of crazy cartoon up there. But I also make sure I include the Vevox app, so that way they can get logged in. I don't generally include the QR code because students are very used to using the app, and I think pretty much everyone in all my classes ends up downloading it for their phone, since it's available for both iPhone and Android platforms. So they just pull their phone out and plug that in. Then often I'll actually start with some sort of question. It was interesting, the poll question that Izzy put up. I did vote, and so I am the only person attending, at least that bothered to respond to the poll from the US. And so I want to make sure that we get on this side of the pond some recognition there. So my guess is we don't have as many people attending, simply because it is so early in the morning, especially on the West Coast. 6 a.m. out there. So I'm glad that I have a chance to share. What we're going to do is kind of run through some basic information here. So the title here is Vevox versus clickers. This was all kind of developed over the last few years, and we'll give you some timeline here and some history. So Izzy's already done a fantastic job of kind of introducing me. So my area of expertise is in biology. And so I teach everything from general biology and introduction to biology all the way up through genetics and cell molecular biology. So for those of you that enjoy the sciences, that would be my realm. So again, I've been teaching here for about 12 years and seen education go through a lot of changes in that time period. So again, I'm working with students that love science and students that just need to get that science class taken care of and out of the way. So when I started at Grace, we weren't using any sort of polling system. And 7 or 8 years ago, Grace College chose to implement clickers from Minio, and this came not only with the little handheld voters that the students would pick up when they walked into class. There were also some screen capture and some board capture software that came with it. So over the entire campus, probably only about a quarter of the faculty actually decided to go ahead and use that. So when I chose to use them, the class was much more engaged. They were more interested in what was going on, and I could really get feedback from them on a real-time basis. This did have a PowerPoint plugin where you could ask questions and have the questions appear in PowerPoint and then have the results appear in PowerPoint as well. So I really like that. I tend to use PowerPoint pretty heavily in my classes, and the results would then be there available in the PowerPoint. So I never did use these for assessment. The main reason is the clickers, once you push that button, your vote is locked in. There was no way to change it. And I could hear the angst among students when they chose the wrong button and without any sort of recourse about going back. Didn't want that to be for assessment. It did have ways in which you could actually assess and do a test where you could change the answers, but it was pretty clunky and really wasn't the focus of my use for them. So it was more used for class engagement and interaction there. So I did have them assigned to students. They would come in a rack with a number, and so every student had the same number. And then I could figure out I knew who had what number, and I could actually go back and track their answers. If I wanted to ask a question where they were I did not want to know their identity, I felt that would influence their answer. If they knew I knew who was answering, I could just have them switch clickers. And that way I would have no idea who had each clicker, and they could answer anonymously. So they were great for multiple choice questions, also for true false questions. You can kind of see on the clicker they had a true false button as well. And often I would periodically ask different classes why they like the clickers, and the fun colors were definitely an attraction. The buttons were different colors, and they liked to see the colors. So they did have an ask a question feature, and you could vaguely see that on the clicker image there in the upper right, where the student could push that button, and then it would the question icon would light up on the toolbar for the clickers. And that would indicate that there was a student with a question. And in theory, then as I'm presenting, I could click on that icon and it would show who had the question, and then we could follow up there. However, I quickly realized that this was a trap because if you push that button, the icon lit up, and then if you pushed it again, it would take you off that list, and the icon would be grayed out again. And so it was kind of a game where the student would push the button, you go to look to see who the student was, and they push it again and disappear. So in fact, that showed up during an initial presentation about the clickers and about how they worked. There was somebody that would push the clicker button and then push it back off. But I never got caught, or I don't know who that was. It was a mystery. So some of the features for clickers were great. Some of them didn't work as well. So the data was recorded. Class contests could be done. I could have challenges where we keep track of which team would get the most right answers over the course of a class, and then I would report back the next time. Students really enjoyed that. Really, I got a lot of good evaluations. When students filled out their final course evaluations. They enjoyed using the clickers. They thought it really kind of broke up some of the intensity of the sciences and allowed them to have some feedback during the question. So there were some drawbacks. So you were limited to multiple choice and true false. So also this kind of gave some limited interaction. You couldn't do anything such as the features we have in Vevox now. So one of the things I always wanted with the clickers was to be able to tell who actually got that first vote in for kind of a rapid type of questions. Could never tell that. Occasionally, especially in larger classes, they were kind of glitchy. If there were a lot of students responding and they could crash the system, then that had to be restarted, usually by having to actually unplug the clickers and plug them back in the old-fashioned way. And that kind of interrupted lectures occasionally. So then COVID came. For fall 2020, Grace returned in person to classes. In March of 2020, as was true pretty much worldwide, everyone went into lockdown and all teaching went to remote. So coming back to in-person classes, there were lots of protective criteria involved. No, the students didn't have to dress up like that, but they had to wear masks. They had to socially distance. All our classrooms, the students were spread out, so had a very different feel to it. No more shared devices were allowed, so the clickers were now off limits. So could not actually use the clickers at all. I'm curious. Let's go ahead and get started with a polling question. And this is kind of the way I would set up a polling question. I always make sure that the Vevox ID is there. Vevox in the PowerPoint plugin does put that in automatically. Sometimes I need to tweak it a little bit to make it more visible. But we'll do a word cloud question. So for those of you that are in academia, when did your campus return to in-person classes? Or if you're not in academia, what about your family or your local school? So we've got, and this one's not a word cloud, oops, that one's coming up a little bit. So we're gonna go ahead and open this up. Oopsie, go back here and let's try that again. So I've got to clear out, there were some results from before. So now we should be ready. And so you should be able to actually, okay, good. I can see a number of you are logged in. One of the features I really like about Vevox is it does show how many people are logged in, and then it shows how many people are responding. So this allows me to know whether I need to leave a little bit of time. Some students' phones seem to just log them out really quickly, and so they've got to log back in every time. So, and I can also kind of keep track and I can give them a countdown if it looks like there's some people that are just kind of hanging out, they're not doing anything. So we've got a good sampling of results. So good, I can see some, you're finding the feature, you can actually change your answer. So we'll go ahead and go with that. The minority of them returned in that first year, fall or spring of 2021, and many more of you have returned this current year. So it's good to see that there are not too many that are still virtual. But during that fall of 2020, when we returned, we were really limited a lot on what we could do. So I went looking for an answer that did not require a shared device and looked at a number of different phone polling type of software. Really, I liked Vevox, and if you saw the webinar from Alice Luby last month, she went through a lot of really good reasons why she chose Vevox. I would just echo those. I'm not going to reiterate all of them. So if you did not have a chance to see that webinar, definitely check it out on the Vevox YouTube channel, because she did a great job kind of highlighting some of the professional features of Vevox. So what I was really focused on is it needed to be done from the student's device, either a phone. I like the fact that Vevox allowed tablet or computer use as well. Students found it very easy to navigate. One of the essentials for me, since I use PowerPoint heavily, was that it had a PowerPoint plugin. And so those were all solid answers. Things I use in Vevox frequently, and this is going to be kind of the main thing I'd like to get across here. First of all, I still use a lot of multiple choice polling. And so their answers are quick. The students have a choice of different options rather than having to think and come up with an answer on their own. So it's a little bit more user-friendly. The students don't feel quite as stressed or pressured there. I'll also use timed questions for rapid fire quizzes. Vevox has an option where you can set a certain amount of time for the questions, and that will allow the students to know how much time they have. Then Vevox will actually close that poll out automatically. So let's go ahead and let you try one of those questions. Quick, about how many individual cells are in the human body? So we've got the Vevox app up there. We'll give you the choices and give you a second to log back in if you got logged out. So then we got 3 million, 30 million, 3 billion, 30 billion, or 30 trillion cells in your body right now. And when I, let's see, I'm going to move this out of the way a little bit here and just double check. Yep, we've got the timer listed up there. So when I click to start polling, then that timer is going to count down and you only have 5 seconds to answer. So let's see how this goes over with you. All right. So, all right, 3, 2, 1. All right. Good number of you got an answer in there. And let's go back to here. You believe there were more than 3 million. So you had it down between number 4 and number 5. Correct answer is number 5. So 30 trillion cells in your body. That's an awful lot. We lose, a million or so a second. But it doesn't really matter because we've got so many cells. So just one of the fun facts that I like to highlight about the human body and the way we're made. So that would be a rapid fire question. So I do still use Vevox for data collection and analysis. Vevox has a great export feature that allows you to see the questions asked, what the different answers were for all the different students. So, and I'll note here, I might have forgot to mention it earlier, I actually do ask them to enter their name. So I don't allow them to do anonymous polling. And that has limitations to it, but it does allow me to track and see who's doing what and how they're doing. And that allows for things like class contests and so on. So I can use that for analysis. I also do word cloud polling. This is a great feature that clickers never even had close to the capacity to do. So let's give you a chance to answer a fun question for that. So students like these, I'll have this type of question often at the beginning of class. So what is your favorite Friday night activity? So you've had a long week doing whatever your job responsibilities are. I always tease the students and I say, I know it takes longer to do these questions because they're not used to actually entering information on their phone and typing on their phone, and it just takes a lot longer to enter it. One of the things I'm really excited about, the modifications and the enhancements that Vevox has had recently is going from just having a choice of only one word to multiple words for the word cloud polling. I will note that while I really value and appreciate all the work that's been put into the PowerPoint plugin for Vevox, occasionally the word clouds do crash PowerPoint, especially if it's a more complex question or has lots of answers. So we're going to go ahead and close it out here. And it always takes a little bit longer to produce the word cloud. And something that I discovered only recently, okay, lots of different answers. Looks like reading is the only one that got more than a couple. When I do this with my students, I always look and see, do any of them put homework? And I think I've only had one person ever put homework, and I tell them, yeah, that's fine. It's not expected. You're doing homework all the time. So, and you'll notice a lot of answers that are similar that didn't get lumped together, but you kind of go through and see. So drinking seems to be a common one there. Eating dinner and so on as a common one as well. So students really enjoy that. This one came up on the screen really nicely, but occasionally I've had them come up where the coloring on the words is not quite as clear. That shows that Vevox is continuing to make modifications and improvements there. So I also use the leaderboard. Alice Luby mentioned that she does not use the leaderboard because of the chance that you're going to have some students feel left out or put down because they're not high on the leaderboard. When I do use the leaderboard, I only show the first two places. So if I've got a class of 30 or 40, there's not going to be that many people listed up there. And so it does protect that anonymity, and it doesn't show the people at the very bottom of the list. But it does, when we're doing class contests, kind of let the students know, all right, is my team doing well? Ooh, I've got several people on my team that are up on that top. Even if I'm not, it kind of gives them that option. I don't use that frequently either. So I also do a comparison of question answers, kind of a pre versus post test analysis. I really like this feature of Vevox, and as students do presentations, they found that they like it as well. So let's try this one out. We want to kind of give you an idea of how these all work. This question should look familiar. About how many individual cells are in the human body? You might have seen this question before. So we've got those same choices. We'll give you that same 5 seconds. Again, I'll wait for a moment to let you get logged in. So, and this is kind of a short-term memory test. Do you remember the right answer from a few minutes ago? All right, here you go. Here's your 5 seconds. So, and got a lot of you answering. Good, good. I'm hoping that it's we've changed. Look at that. So 35 of you remembered. And here's what I would say for the one person that voted on number 3, you hit the wrong button and you really meant to hit number 5. But even though Vevox gives you the chance to change your answer, it doesn't with the rapid fire type question, it didn't give you a chance. So don't worry about it. I'll mention here before we go to the next slide that it is kind of fun to let the students to go to the Vevox app, not the Vevox website when you're running this, and it will show live results. and you kind of let students influence each other. And, oh, everybody else is voting for this, maybe I should vote for that, or no, I'm going to be the renegade that votes for something different. It actually shows you live results as they come in. So that's kind of a fun thing. But let's compare this question with the previous question. There is that right answer. So here are the different options. And it shows that the class improved dramatically. You guys did an excellent job of moving to the right answer that second time. So again, this can let students know, especially if they have opinion type polls and they're doing some sort of persuasive type presentation, they can see, did they sway anyone's opinion one way or the other. So a neat feature that Vevox has. So, as he started out with a pin-on-picture question, this currently is not available in PowerPoint, so you can't actually embed it. And because of time constraints, I'm not going to go out and show you how to set one up. So maybe if there's interest later, I could do that. But that is a really fun type of question, especially icebreaker type questions at the beginning of a class. I don't know if you're familiar with all the questions that go through the social media these days. One has to go, and it will show pictures of 4 or 5 things, and then you have to vote which one you don't want around anymore. And students enjoy that. It gets them communicating and kind of talking with each other. And this is one of those type of one must go questions, and they would have to choose which business they would no longer go to, and usually again doesn't start any arguments, but some friendly animated discussion. So I've used some of these things, features in the past, and one of them is surveys. Vevox does allow for a survey to be imported where there are multiple questions. Students can enter answers. It will capture all that data. That was really useful during that year when we were not allowed to share any sort of devices. I could do that and replace a paper survey with Vevox, and the students have the opportunity to do that throughout the class. You could even leave the session open after class and allow them to fill that out. It wouldn't be very good for tests, simply because of test security issues, but they were very useful for getting opinions. Rating questions, I haven't used those as much. That's a neat feature that Vevox has, that has not quite fit into what the mode I teach in. And then the moderated comments, we'll get to these in a moment, but this is the way that you can actually allow Vevox to track who is first on something. So one of the types of quizzes I do in my classes are Jeopardy quizzes, where the first person to raise their hand gets a chance to answer the question for their team and get team points. So with the clickers, you couldn't tell who was first, but with Vevox, you can have them enter a comment. Then I actually would have an assistant watching the comments and seeing who actually entered that first comment. Then they would have the opportunity to answer the question. And this was the utility of this was really highlighted during that first fall of 2020. We were doing this in a class of 60 or so. There was actually a student from the UK that could not be on campus here in the United States. He was having visa issues, couldn't actually come over, was still enrolled in the class, was participating via Zoom and Vevox, and he actually was the first person to claim the question, raise his hand to answer the question, even from the UK. So, and he was able to answer it correctly. It was neat to see that internet facilitated bridge over the Atlantic Ocean, and it really made him feel like he was still part of the class. He wasn't isolated and separated out. So then. Text submissions, as I said, that again is useful for some applications. It will capture the data. Don't really have in PowerPoint a way to facilitate that. So, and most of these I've gone back to more hands-on ways of doing things in the classroom. So things I don't currently use. And again, it's not that these are bad or they're wrong or anything. Alice Luby did a great job of describing how she uses the comments. Either in a moderated or an unmoderated format, and especially in an anonymous setting. So I find that when I'm teaching, I just don't really have time, or it doesn't fit the flow of my teaching to be watching those comments come in. That's something I probably need to get better at doing. we'll kind of work at integrating in the future. So most of my classes are relatively small, and the students will interact more out loud. But that's something that it's a good feature to have. And again, Alice described that very well. One of the other reasons I'm a little leery about using them is the side comments that can start going on, and again, that I just need to be able to work through. Student opinion of Vevox. Most of them have noted that they really appreciate using Vevox just for the change of pace of lecture. They really like about the fact that they can have an app on their phone. It's very easy to use. They appreciate that different types of questions can be used, whether they're word cloud or multiple choice or whatever. Some have actually just admitted that, hey, this way I get to have my phone out during lecture, and you can't tell whether I'm sending a Vevox question in or answering a question or texting my friends. They've admitted that, and I realize that, but I also realize that there's no way you can really prevent that, no matter what your syllabus says in education. I always end my class with a would you rather question. Just something that gets them thinking about something else and interacting as they leave the room. So I'm going to end my presentation the same way. Getting Vevox back out, would you rather go back in time and fix one mistake you've made, or get the answer to one question you have about the future? And yeah, usually I make these so that they're really kind of a dilemma. The students have to kind of think about it. So which would you pick as you think about it? So both of them are tempting. And I got my reference to Doctor Who in there. Another question for those of you that are familiar with Doctor Who's your favorite doctor? Everybody's got pretty strong opinions about that as well. So let's see what you said here. All right, most everybody's responded. Yeah, a pretty good mix. So glad that not that many of you have a mistake that you really were desperate to go back and fix. All right, well, thank you very much for kind of following along, and let's have Izzy take back over, and then we can answer some of the questions that you've entered.
Amazing, thank you, Rick. Let me just share my screen again. Hopefully you can all see that in a second when that loads. Brilliant. So before we get over to the Q&A board, I just wanted to promote a couple of things. So our next upcoming Vevox webinar, we are joined by Rachel Chan from St Mary's University in London, and she'll be speaking around how to make your hybrid classes more engaging. So I have just added the link on the agenda screen through Vevox on where to sign up. So feel free to sign up and attend that webinar. And also just to stay connected, so we have a YouTube channel which we have, I'm sure most of you have seen already, but we would love for you to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Within this YouTube channel, we have really great videos on pretty much how to do everything within the Vevox dashboard, as well as the PowerPoint add-in as well. And also follow us on LinkedIn to stay up to date on everything Vevox, including blogs, latest news, updates, and more. Cool. So I'm now just going to move back to the Q&A board. So if you haven't, I'm sure you are all still connected as you've been answering polls. But here are the joining instructions again. And I'm just going to pull up the Q&A board for us to answer some questions. So if there are any questions that you have, please feel free to post. We have about 10 minutes left, but if we don't get through all of the questions, we will send out the answers later today or tomorrow. But I'm just going to display them by most liked, so do feel free to go through and like any questions that you would like answered. So I'm just going to go from the top, and Rick, we've got quite a few in here for you. So the first one is, what feedback have you had from students about Vevox?
Students really appreciate using their phone. It's a very familiar device to them. They don't have to grab anything else. As I said, I think 99% of them actually do use Vevox through their phone rather than through a tablet or the computer. So they like the features. They like to be able to see the results on their phone. And even in class evaluation surveys, I've not had any negative comments about Vevox and about using Vevox.
Great, thank you. Next question, how large are your classes? I mean, number of students.
So they range, my smaller classes will be somewhere around 15. I will have classes up to about 60. So this doesn't, it would be a different feel if you were teaching at a larger university where you had classes of 250 or 300. Certainly Vevox could still be used, but my classes are not that large. In fact, some of the more engaged classes are actually my smaller classes. And that means that Vevox is actually more beneficial in the larger classes where students don't have, they feel a little bit more like they're just one face in a crowd. It gives them a way to respond.
Yeah, so Vevox does allow a number of different student logins. So depending on what Vevox account you're on, if you're on a free education account or for a free business account, it's slightly different. But the maximum, so if you're on an institution account, it allows up to 1,500 students per Vevox session. So yeah, it does cater for the large classes as well as the small ones. Next question is, sorry, carry on.
Briefly mention that I opted for for purchasing the personal license. So it only caused minor problems because my wife saw the credit card bill and saw a charge to Ireland. And wait a minute, we don't know anyone in Ireland, and it ended up canceling a credit card. But we got that all straightened out. So I'm actually paying for, my department's paying for Vevox because its facility, when you actually subscribe to it, there's some more options that are opened up. So our institution is working on getting an institution license now. So more and more people here are finding the Vevox is really beneficial.
Next question is, how high is the student participation in your classes?
This goes back to the fact that I actually have them sign in with their name. They know that they've signed in with their name, and I told them, if you're not using Vevox, you're not really here. You're not paying any attention, and so I want to know that you're actually paying attention, because I will have, typically I'll use a Vevox question once every 5 to 10 minutes. So they're coming up frequently, and so if the student's just daydreaming and not logged in, I don't force them to log in, but you can see the number of people that are logged in. And I know the number of people in class, and so I can kind of match that up. So I won't wait forever for a student to log in, and I've never had a student that just sits there and never uses Vevox. So that does encourage them to log in, but it takes away that anonymity. And if you like more anonymous feedback and anonymous comments and questions, and you feel students are going to be more likely to ask questions if it is anonymous, then you have the other problem, because then there's really no you have no leverage to actually get them to log in. So there's no perfect solution. I've chosen one direction. Alice Luby did a great job of describing the anonymous option last month.
Yeah, it definitely depends on kind of what you're teaching and what you're trying to get out of your students when you're using Vevox, as to if you're using it anonymously or identified. But yeah, both great points. Thank you. We've got quite a few questions in here, and I'm just conscious of time. We do have about 4 minutes left. But next question is, does your institution use Vevox with any other platforms? For example, web conferencing or VLE, how do you find it? So are there any integrations, obviously apart from the PowerPoint add-in, that you use alongside Vevox?
So there is not. So as far as I know, I kind of pioneered using Vevox on campus. I saw one of the questions was, have I tried other online polling? And I have not. I really liked Vevox with its package of features and the professional and easy use platform. And so I can't really compare it to others. And as our institution word is getting out about Vevox, we well could start using that in some of the other features, but others would have to answer that.
Yeah, so integrations with VLE such as Canvas, Blackboard, Moodle, they're typically aimed for our institution accounts, which, as Rick said, is currently in the process with Grace College. So yeah, that is accessible at an institution level. We've got help articles written on all of our integrations on our website if whoever wrote this in wanted to read up a bit more. So you use Vevox asynchronously at all. So you do you use it? So do you use Vevox asynchronously, or do you use it just in a live class?
I only use it in the live class. You have the option of leaving the session open and allowing students to log in and answer questions at their leisure. So that hasn't been as beneficial to me. So just using it during that class period is the way in which I've used it. It certainly could be used in other ways.
Yeah, so Vevox can be used in both ways. So we do see it used quite a lot asynchronously. So you can poll asynchronously, you can keep polls open, but the main feature that we have for the asynchronous style of teaching is the survey feature. So that allows you to send out a batch of questions for your students to answer in their own time. But you can also use the Q&A board asynchronously as well. So the platform is very flexible, so it does work in both scenarios. Cool, we only have about a minute left, so I'm just going to take one more question, which you've actually already answered, so I'll go to the next one. So which of the PowerPoint features have you found the most challenging?
Depends on the background that I use. Vevox does allow you to create poll questions within PowerPoint, and the only challenging problem I've had with that is not actually running the questions or getting the results, other than what I mentioned about the word clouds not always showing up right. Sometimes the formatting can be a little bit of a challenge. It may not really, the package that you've put together may not match up well with what the question imports as when you enter it. But most of that is customizable, and I use the duplicate feature frequently. Once I get a slide the way I like it, I will just duplicate that and then change the question rather than re-entering everything as a new slide.
Yeah, that's a really good idea, actually, a really good tip. But yeah, I'm just noticing the time. We've only got a minute left. So I just wanted to take the last few seconds just to say thank you so much to everyone who has joined today, and a massive thank you to Rick for also joining us on presenting. It was a really great presentation, and you were the first person that we have had in America to join us on one of our webinars. So a big thank you from everyone us here at Vevox. So as I mentioned, we will get round to sending the answers to any questions that we didn't answer. But if there was anything that you wanted to ask and get an answer from straight away, feel free to get in touch with us, which to the email support@vevox.com, and we will answer you straight away. But again, thank you so much to Rick, and I hope everyone has a lovely day.